hi viewers. Welcome to another episode of the Nana Yaya Show. I love money, you love money, we all love money. But in today's economy, you all know that it is a crunch. It is a crunch. And so the need to be more careful and more attentive to our financial well being is important. Not only that, is also as Black people, our financial situation in the world is of a different nature. So a conscious awareness to finances is equally important. And I know a little something about finances, but I'm not in depth into finances. That is why I have Andre Smith with me today. So he is going to give us the high down, the low down, the breakdown, the side down, and all the downs about money. So if you don't know about money, if you don't respect money, money will not respect you. But Andre is going to tell us, walk us through money 2024. What is it for you? Andre, welcome to the Nana Yayabwa podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm super excited. And I tuned into some of the episodes, and I must say, you're doing a great job with the storytelling. In fact, I've learned some things about my Jamaican culture when you talked about Aki, things that I
Oh,
didn't know.
oh, you discovered that one.
I discovered that one. How can I not, right? It's good stuff. And as you say, we're going to talk about money, the truth, the
Mhm.
raw truth, and the surprising truth
Yes,
about
yes,
money.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. So I'm just going to read a little bit about your bio that you sent me. So if people are not aware, the Nanaya Yabua show is in-depthly about storytelling, the power of narratives, and even us talking about money is really how do these narratives inspire and transform. So everything you hear on this podcast is to inspire you, transform you. When Andre shares his experience about money, what do you take from it? So Andre is a visionary entrepreneur and dedicated problem solver. I love you already. Just those two. I love it. With a passion for driving innovation and creating impactful solutions. As the founder and CEO of Flip Academy, he is on a mission to transform how people think about money. Flip Academy is the first platform in Canada that uses a simulated banking experience, animation, and gamification to teach kids about money management. The goal of Flip Academy is to help kids learn, save, invest, and break generational cycles. Darn.
The innovator, sorry, the elevator pitch.
Oh, you,
Elevator pitch right there.
Andre, you got me at hello. So I hear an accent. What is our background? What is our beginning story? How did we get here?
It's Jamaican. I don't know if you've ever heard in Jamaica where we say, we're little but we're talawa, meaning that
Oh,
we're a small country, but our impact is big.
it's big. Yes. Beautiful. So Jamaican living here in Canada now. Give us a little bit more in depth about that transition from Jamaica to Canada and the influences or impacts on your life till present.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, I actually was talking about that today. And,
Hmm.
I was in my second year of university
Hmm.
when I decided to move to Canada. I was attending the University of the West Indies, UWI, as some would call it. And my grandmother being my breadwinner and my only source of income and survival. My
Hmm.
grandmother was on her deathbed pretty much. She got ill, and at that time, like I had to make a choice between like continuing my education at UA or go abroad in search of a better life. And the opportunity came, and I came to Canada, and I
Hmm.
was like, you know what? Do I go back in this really difficult and uncomfortable life, or do I move to Canada in search of a better life? Now, the biggest obstacle or challenge at the time was finishing university, because to me, growing up, and to a lot of Jamaicans and people in emerging economies, is like one of the things that we've heard is that education is the only way out of poverty. And so for me, giving up on university
Not an
you know
option.
wasn't an option. But then I was faced with this reality that I'm coming to Canada, uncertain future, but there is a hope that there might be a better future. And of course, I made a decision, the hard decision, I think in 2011, that I'm gonna move to Canada. And I walked out of UE. I was in my second year. I didn't finish my degree until 2015. But that's kind of like where it started, with that ambitious decision to move to Canada in 2011.
Wow. I admire people who are able to make those hardcore decisions, because many people will say, okay, this is the situation, but they're still afraid of the unknown. That fear factor that always come in. But something, you overcame that fear, you happened to come to Canada, and then what was the journey here in Canada like?
Um, I will tell you, it was hard. And this is probably something a lot of immigrants can relate to. But my first few months in Canada, I slept on my friend's couch, right? Because that was the only person that I know. And, it was a caring friend. He had other people there. So I slept on his couch for a few months. My very first job was a factory job, because, I was told by a lot of people, like, as an immigrant, you have to start off at a factory job to gain Canadian experience, right?
Yes.
And adjusting to the cold was another harsh reality for me. I don't think, even to this day, I can't adjust to the cold. But imagine then, fresh off the island where it's warm 24/7, coming into, the snow where it's like cold, like that was a big transition.
Hmm.
And, my very first job was at a factory. And I will tell you, like, it was hard. Like, I would get up at like 4 a.m. in the morning, and I would have to commute probably about, I think, 3 or 4 buses to get to that factory. And it was nonstop work. And I remember being on the floor, and I would just hear this big buzzing alarm every time we need to go back on the floor. We would get like a 5 minute break, and then you hear this big alarm to go back on the floor. And it was us horrible.
So, which area of Toronto did you happen to come and land?
So yeah, interestingly, I started out in Brampton,
Okay.
and then ended up downtown Toronto.
Okay.
Ended up at Dundas and River. That's a Regent Park area.
Mm,
Yeah. Are you familiar
yeah,
with Regent
a little bit. Yeah, the whole place has changed now. They've raised
Park?
down a lot
Yeah,
of,
they
yeah.
changed everything. Yeah, yeah.
It's changed now. Yeah, I think I was listening to one of your presentations, and you were talking about when you came, where you were gunshot, somebody being, and it's like, ooh,
Yeah.
you fell into that um, space that if you didn't take care, you get trapped there, and the cycle kind of continues. The cycle continues. Okay, so now we've broken the cycle. So were you able to finish your university here?
Yeah, actually, I did. And I went back to York about
Okay.
2 years after being
Hmm.
here. And yeah, I was able to graduate with my degree in accounting, with honors in 2015. So that
Beautiful.
journey, a 3 year journey, I think it took like 5 or almost 6 years,
Yeah.
but it was totally worth it. And yeah, I went on to do some great things, post my degree.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's been incredible.
Beautiful, beautiful. Congratulations on your journey. I hope whoever that is listening to it, all those young folks come to Canada thinking that there is no tomorrow. All hope is not lost. all hope is not lost. It's difficult, most especially because you may be a person of color and the circumstances that you have chance to find yourself in the country, but with effective planning and a mindset of achievement, you are able to make it. Okay. So fast forward, you've done all this, you've established yourself, you're working probably for somebody, you be paid, and then Flip Academy.
Yeah. It was a journey. So after I finished my degree, well, I was working at CAMH prior to completing my degree. I worked at CAMH for 5 years, so that's the Center for Addiction and Mental Health. And that was like really the beginning of my career in corporate. It was a fun experience. But then I left CAMH and I went on to work at the WSIB.
Are you sure our paths have never crossed before somewhere in Toronto?
Possibly. Were you at CAMH? Like you've worked at CAMH before, right? Yes, I feel like, it's crazy. I feel like we've connected before.
I feel like I've seen you before, but I really can't.
Which of the location you work?
Downtown.
Downtown. Is it the Queen, right? Yeah, I feel like we may have crossed paths before. That is so crazy. That is crazy. So the voice sounds familiar. I'm like, I feel like I've heard your voice before.
Or were you at the Blacks in Technology conference recently, downtown? Toronto?
The BPTN one?
Yes.
So I only went to the VIP pre-launch because I had to go to Atlanta for another conference.
Okay.
So I was only at the VIP launch.
If I remember, I'll let you know.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I'll tell you where I was at Queen. I was at in dual diagnosis, and then I went on to Mars, which is, I don't know if it changed, Metro Addiction and Assessment and Referral Service. But yeah, if you remember, let me. So yeah, then I went on to the WSIB, and I'll tell you, like, that was like probably one of the toughest jobs that I've had, but it was the one that prepared me the most for corporate. And then, of course, being at the WSIB, I started volunteering at the JCA, which is the Jamaica Canadian Association.
Yes.
And so it was then I got this award from CBC because I was volunteering, teaching people in the community about financial literacy. And so after I got the award, that's kind of like when, I got like a lot of publicity and I formed all of these partnerships, and then I started teaching financial literacy in the community. And, from there, my passion grew so strong to the point that I was like, okay, I need to build something that is beyond me, because people were just like requesting me left, right, and center. I grew from just a volunteer project to be working with more than 20 organizations, to be hosting more than 100 workshops per year. It just got crazy. So I had to build something that could sustain the growth. And so that's where Flip Academy came. It started off as Flip and Floss, which is actually an acronym for Financial Literacy and Investor Program, and Future Leaders Obtaining Sufficient Skill.
Oh, yes. Okay. That was my next question. Flip and Floss, what is that?
That is what it is. It's that acronym. And when the conversation started, I wanted to start with my community to have conversations about money. And so the idea is that I would take concepts that we are familiar with, such as the concept of flipping, and then when we get the money, we floss it, right? So I took those two words to create these acronyms because I wanted to challenge the mindset of people around money. And so that's where that came from. And from there, again, the passion grows and grows. And then I started, of course, I have to practice what I preach. So I started investing more aggressively in stocks. And then I went into real estate and I built a real estate portfolio. I went into tech, an industry that I had no knowledge or experience. And here I am 3 years later, building 2 tech companies, quit my corporate job, my 6-figure corporate job, and focusing on what I love, which is helping people to make good financial decisions. Crazy story, I tell you.
No, it's absolutely lovely. It's a lovely story. These are the stories I really want to hear. I really want to tell, so that if there is any young person there in somewhere, or even adults trying to figure out what their next step is. The
Mhm.
reason being, today I was having a conversation with a friend. It's like, okay, I'm in a different stage of life. I've worked in my profession for almost 2 decades. It's like, what next?
Mhm.
And I was thinking about fintech, and I have no clue about fintech, right? But I was just thinking about it, and telling the person I really need to do my research in fintech and figure out what is there for me if this is what I'm thinking. And you just talking about technology. It's like,
Let's
oh,
partner in that fintech project because I want to venture into fintech in emerging economies as well. I had this idea of doing some fintech work in Jamaica. Didn't pan out. It was a $8,000 investment that didn't work, but I didn't. I don't consider it as something lost. It was just not the right timing. But I did attempt to venture into fintech, and it didn't work out. And I mean, this is one of the crazy things about life and lessons. It's all about lessons and
yes,
learning and going from
yes,
it.
yes, yes. You got a master class in life lessons, what works and what wouldn't work out, and timing and everything. Next time when you go in with more experience.
Exactly. That's it.
Wow, this is amazing. Thank you. Wow. We're going to have a fantastic time.
We
I
definitely
can,
will.
I can feel it. I can feel
I'm
it.
already feeling it myself.
Let's talk about money. Let's talk about money. Let's talk about money. So, Flip Academy, the focus is on Black youth and finances. In your experience, what are some of the challenges you see with perceptions about money amongst Black youth?
Mhm. I think the biggest one is around money and wealth and success is really in our community. We put a lot of emphasis on branded things as a symbol of success. And so you'll find that really the whole thing where they say cash is trash, we spend a lot of our money on branded things that does not go up in value, and we see that as a symbol of success. But here's the other crazy thing about some of the challenges that I see in our community is the lack of collective economics. So we have this economic system where we earn our money, and studies have shown that like the black dollar lasts the least amount of time in our community. So as we get it, it essentially goes somewhere else. So we
Mhm.
work our money, we put it into brand name clothing, our brand name cars, etc. But then we're not spending on our own businesses, right? So we're more likely to go and spend our money elsewhere than to go to a brother or a sister store and say, "Hey, I support your business growth." So that is the challenge, is that there is this deficit in terms of our understanding of what success look like and what wealth looks like. And then there is the lack of collective economics. And then the third big one I would say is really our understanding of money, is that our understanding of money and success is very narrowly focused on cash. So the more cash we have either in our house or in our bank account, the more we see that as success. But as an investor, I've grown to realize that cash is trash, right? That is because we tend to spend cash, and cash, if we leave it in a regular bank account, does not appreciate like other assets if we were to put it in those asset classes. And then the limited knowledge, I'd say, is the fourth one around investing is a big challenge because for me growing up in Jamaica, I was told, that the love of money is the root of all evil, and that's really all I knew about money. I feel like you probably hear the same thing. Yeah, that's really all I hear about money.
And every rich person, when I was growing up in Ghana, every rich person either did obia
Mhm.
to get the money,
Yes, I'll tell you. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
or they were wicked.
Yeah.
But I have grown as I've aged. I've grown to understand that the people that we said they were wicked was because of overburdening
Right.
on
Right.
them. That because they have worked hard and gotten a little something, everybody wants them to give them
Yeah.
some of their hard earned money. And they don't see it that way, which is really true.
Yeah.
Because if they give, they wouldn't have anything more to give, or whatever that they invest in, they give. We all come back to square one.
100%.
Um, when you were listing those, the list of what many of our issues are, I was thinking. I used to live around the Jane and Finch area.
Mm-hmm.
These days, I ask myself, how were you able to live there for so long?
Mm-hmm.
And even though I was a professional, the vehicle I drive is very, very modest. And then these people on say welfare, the
Yep.
vehicle
Yep. They're doing better than you and I. You think they're doing a lot better than we are. Yeah. It's
and
crazy.
I crack my brains and I still don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
So you talk about the brand names, the Lexus, the Acuras, the Mercedes Benz,
Yeah.
all these high-end vehicles.
Yeah.
And what amazes me, one of the books that I read some time ago, long time ago, when I really got into finance, was personal finance, was
Mm-hmm.
the oh, is it the richest man, the
Man in
richest
Babylon.
something something next door?
Richest man in Babylon.
No, 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 no.
Mhm.
Yeah, I have read that as well. But it talks about America's wealthiest. I've forgotten the title. It talks about America's wealthiest not being those people with brand names and big vehicles, big cars, and everything, but it's just your next door neighbor with a little bit of their business, their house is paid for, their vehicles are not new, slightly
Mhm.
used. Yes, vehicles. And so my brains and I saw with our people there, it just didn't gel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some of these people,
Likewise,
they've been in the same position for a long time. And so that's why we need to have this conversation about money so that,
yeah,
like we can change the situation
yeah,
for some of these
yeah.
people because it comes
Uh,
down to mindset.
I think I'm not too sure where it stems from, but also the mindset that we really do have about money is not the greatest at all. It's not the greatest at all. But I do believe community wise, we had systems like Susu or
Yeah.
Partner
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
for savings. That could, at least that's a positive that we do, that
Yeah.
could help us. But this is where you come in with your expertise about money.
Yeah.
So let's leave the older ones. They've already made their mistakes. Let's come to the children. It's like we're going to 2024. I have two teenagers, and I'm thinking, okay, how do I get them to learn about money?
Yeah. How old are they?
My son is 17, my daughter is 15.
Okay.
They're teenagers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what advice can you give to parents, like myself with teenagers,
Yeah.
having conversations with your children about money and how to plan, with money moving forward and going to college and the rest of their lives?
Yeah. No, that's really good that you're thinking about that. And I think the biggest thing that you can do as a parent is really get the kids involved in the financial decision making process. So you have to have conversation with them about earnings, right? So when they start making money, that they'll understand the earning process, understand the impact of taxes. You want to start having conversation about being responsible in college, budgeting and these things. But you also want to engage them in the household decisions. so that they understand, okay, this is what comes in. These are the bills that are, that I have, to be paid. And here's the other thing that you want to start engaging them in at 15 and 17 is stocks. And I know this is a little bit challenging for some parents because they don't have the knowledge about stocks or investment in real estate. But this is where you want to say, as a parent, maybe I can find something that we can learn together, and then you want to incentivize that learning, and especially for the child at 17, you probably want to consider even adding them to that, to your credit card, right,
Mhm.
and allowing them to start building responsible habits toward credit, understanding what credit is, how it impacts, their financial decision making, because after 17 is 18, which means that that person would have to start establishing their own credit identity.
Mhm.
And if they don't have the knowledge or that build up, then that could potentially lead to bad decisions. And one of the harshest lessons I had to learn, because I wanted to do my master's degree, I got accepted, but then I had terrible credit, and so that prevented me, from doing
Mhm.
my master's. So that is something that I would say, start having the conversation with them about money management, about credit, about debt, managing debt responsibly.
Mhm.
Start having conversation about generational wealth. Start
Mhm.
to cultivate the mindset around things like, wasting money on branded things. Having conversation about peer pressure and influences on social media, because the peer pressure may not come from somebody directly in their circle, but it could come from the influences of social media. And I mean, I would say that a lot of the things out there that we see are not real, but being a teenager, there is this pressure to kind of. I'll tell you, I've had so many teenagers come to me with their parents, and they're like, "Yeah, well, I've heard about these types of investment, and I want to go in."
Mhm.
And you don't even have the slightest clue about what these things are, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
you want to start having those conversations with them about different influences, and things that they'll hear. And of course, there are a ton of platforms that you can get guidance from yourself. You can come to us at Flip Academy. There are YouTube channels.
Mhm.
There's Investopedia. There are a ton
Yeah.
of guidances out there that you can go to get additional information. But the conversation starts now.
Wow, that is great. That is wonderful. All right. In my son's school, they were doing some stocks as part of their financial thing. So that is one thing that he knew I double in stocks. So he came
Yeah,
to me, mommy, yada yada. It's like, okay, if it's not dividend paying stocks, we're not getting it. So
yeah,
I
yeah,
gave him at least my estimation of the 10 top companies that are
yeah.
dividend Canadian dividend
Mm.
paying thing, and he did pretty good in it in school. He was number three. It's like, yeah, your mom did help you.
That's amazing. I'm pretty sure Enbridge was on that list. Eh?
Sorry.
Enbridge was on that list of stock
Yes,
that you
it
can.
was.
That is the dividend aristocrat. But I'll tell you something. How powerful dividends are. When I was exiting corporate, I had to recreate my pension, right? Because every year
Mm,
from my salary, I would contribute a certain sum of money to my pension.
mhm,
So when I left corporate and I got my payout, I
mhm.
reinvested that in dividend stock that would generate enough dividend to contribute at a rate higher than what I was contributing when I was in corporate. So
Yes,
even if all of this madness that I'm doing, if it don't work out, my
you
pension would
still
still be
have.
going.
Yes,
And that's the power of financial literacy. You know what I
yes,
mean? Knowing that these
yes.
things exist and how to do it.
And whoever that is listening to this conversation, wherever that you are, I think we more concentrated here in North America and say North America, the United States. We do have similar systems. Even in England,
Yeah.
there will be that understanding, but there will be some that may chance to watch in the developing world as well, who wants to say, okay, I need to do something for myself. I need to get a handle. And I always say there are the basics that can be done. And I think you talk about some of the basics like budgeting. So
Hmm.
if you could break down budgeting for us, at least anybody and everybody should have that fundamental core if they're thinking about, money.
Yeah. But budgeting is crucial. Like it was the tool that I used to get out of debt. I remember when I was in about $50,000 worth of bad debt. And, with a budget, you're essentially looking at what is coming in and what is going out, where it's going, right? And you want to make sure that what is coming in is more than what is going out on a monthly basis, because then you have a surplus. That surplus, you can use to save, you can use to invest.
Mhm.
But one of the things that I want to say about budgeting, because this is how budgeting has worked for a lot of families, they typically look at their income, which is a fixed amount in most cases. So I have my day job, or I have 3 or 4 jobs, and I say, okay, I make $2,000 a month, and then I deduct my expenses in my budget. And then when we're trying to save or we're trying to invest, or when things get hard, we will start to cut back on a lot of things. And so budgeting, the way budgeting has historically been taught to a lot of people, is that you use budget as a tool to cut expenses.
Mhm.
But you want to focus on the income side, because there's an income component. And so this is where you want to ask yourself, how can you start making more money? Because in a lot of cases, you may not need to cut your expenses if you can increase your income. So
Mhm.
the focus has to be on those different streams of earning income. Like we talk about dividend stocks, it could be a side hustle, it could be a day job, but you want to increase your income as well. But using that budget as a tool, the essential thing about it is that it helps you to become disciplined with your money. And I will tell you, when it comes to personal finance, discipline is the most crucial thing. It is like walking through Yorkdale or any one of those malls. Here's the crazy thing. I've walked through those malls so many times. I see a lot of things that I love, and I'm like, pick it up on my way to the cashier, and I'm like, you know what? I did not come here to buy this. I'm gonna put it back. I mean, sometimes I do buy it, but the discipline prevails in most cases.
But at least you are disciplined enough to realize that you don't need it. A need versus want, you don't need it. Yeah, it's nice, but then, as I say, my pocket is disagreeable.
I disagree. Sometimes most of the times I'm broke. I do not have a lot of cash sitting in my bank account. I keep myself broke. So like when I go, I'm like, yeah, I don't have the money to buy this.
Mhm,
You know what
mhm.
I mean? And like we have to create system and safeguard. I don't
Yes.
like having excess cash, because the moment I have excess cash, it goes. My cash is in real estate, right?
Mhm.
Because I manage multiple real estate properties that I acquired, and so my bulk of my cash is tied up in real estate or stocks. So if I wanted money, I have to go through a whole heap of process
Too.
before I can actually get access to it.
Yes. I think that our next conversation, I have to pull you in for you to break down real estate investment as per your experience. For some of us, for those who are interested in real estate, because well, okay, I'm not going to give too much of myself away. As my daughter will say, "Mommy, I love money." I say, "If you love money, then you
Good.
got to be an entrepreneur."
That's good. Your daughter is on the right track. There's
She
nothing wrong with loving money in a responsible way.
she loves money. Her mother loves money. We all love money.
That is
With
very good.
Without money, the world doesn't go around. Yeah. So
Right?
we had a good conversation. She changed one of her art courses and decided to do entrepreneurship. She's in grade 10. So that I'm very happy. She's happy with the course and
Yeah,
just fly. Yes, 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 yes.
very good.
Wow, Black youth and money, Black youth and money, Black youth and money. This is so beautiful. So we've talked about budgeting. Um, any kind of advice? Do you have any advice? When you talk about budgeting, we just talked about it, but then if somebody says, "How do I budget? How do I really go about it?" Like I'm
Mhm.
a pen and I'm a tactile person. I love pen and paper, so I still
Yeah.
do write my budgets on a pen and paper. what are some of the advice you can give if there are some apps that people can use, or
Yeah.
what's with budgeting? Yeah.
Well, actually, well, I was gonna say Mint, but I heard that Mint is closing down. So Mint is a budgeting app that you could use. But
Mm,
a lot of the banks, they have a budgeting component. And
mm.
one of my Nigerian friend, he has an app called Spendify. So you can check out Spendify. It's a budgeting app.
Oh,
Allows you to track your expenses, and it does a lot of cool stuff. And they are looking at AI as well. So you can definitely check that out if you're looking to support a brother. Spendify is a budgeting app. But outside of the apps, through the bank and all the other budgeting app, you can go traditional, like you said, writing things down. I will sometimes write things down, and I love to forecast. So
mhm,
here's one of the good thing about budgeting. So you can write down and look at what's coming in. So you write down how much you make, and you write down how much you're spending, right? And I mean, the good thing about the app is that the app is a little bit more accurate, because sometimes we forget that we spend certain amount of money conveniently sometimes, right?
I just don't want to face
You don't
it.
want to remember, right? You don't want to remember, so you conveniently forget it. So the app is a little bit more accurate. But here's something that people should incorporate in their budgeting is forecasting and what I call sensitivity. Well, not what I call, but sensitivity analysis. So forecasting is like, you're looking ahead, you're planning for the future. So you're like, how is my situation going to change in the next 3 months, the next 6 months,
Mm,
next
mm,
year? And so you're anticipating what is to come from a financial perspective. I'll tell you that anticipation is really solid when it comes to money management, because even with my wife, when the
mm,
markets were changing, I went to her and I said, these are some of the things that we have to start having conversation about
mhm,
before these things happen.
mhm,
And so that forecasting piece is crucial. The other important part with budgeting is the sensitivity analysis. So it is making assumptions about changes. So you might say, what if I were to lose my job?
mm,
What if my income dropped by 40%? What if
mhm,
my expenses go up? What if my bill go up? What if my rent go up? So when
mhm,
you start doing those sensitivity, it gives you some sort of sense of what may happen if these
mhm,
things were true. And so that's when you're now, okay, I need to put a plan in place to
mhm,
push on these things. And so what a lot of people say emergency fund. Emergency fund is good, but I would say have that emergency fund in an asset, a stable stock that is
mhm,
giving you dividend, just like I said, dividend stock that you can liquidate quickly. Because if you have it in a regular savings account, you're losing value because of inflation. So those are some of the things that I'd consider.
mhm,
From a business perspective, if there are any entrepreneurs listening, budgeting is still crucial. I got up this morning and I looked at my finances. I looked at my Airbnb operation to see what was coming in terms of
mhm,
income and what was going out. I mean, this year for my Airbnb operation, it was challenging. And so
mhm,
already I started having conversation about how we can change things going forward in the new year. This is a little bit more challenging, but again, the budgeting is still a great tool,
mhm,
to manage, your income and your expenses. And there are a lot of platforms like QuickBooks, Zero.
mhm,
For me, I use QuickBooks, but I also have access because I do short-term rental. Those
mhm,
platforms give me a good sense of the income that is coming in. That's quite accurate. I think sometimes I lose track on income because sometimes people do direct booking and they'll pay cash. And
mhm,
I
mhm.
will admit that I don't do a good job at accurately tracking that. Cash is nice when it's coming in. Like, you're just like, "Yeah, yeah, give me the cash, and you're like, you're not
Cash
thinking
is
about it.
king.
Cash is king, cash flow is queen. You're not thinking
Okay.
about, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Nice, 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 nice. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I know this is for the we were talking about black youth, but I think we the adults need this kind of conversation to be actually to translate it to the youth as well. So as you said, entrepreneurs, parents, mamas, daddies, aunties, uncles watching it, you also take your bit from it and discuss it with, the family. It's generational wealth. You did talk about generational wealth, and it's something that we Many of us may not have heard the terminology, or really we've heard about it, but we don't really understand it. So let's retract. Let's go back to our narrative as Black people within this, we in the world, and why many of us don't have that knowledge and understanding, and build on that for people to really, understand and get it.
Yeah, I mean that's a great question, and looking back, if you even look at now when they talk about the great transfer that is happening, trillions of dollars are going to be moving from one generation to the next, and a very small percentage of that is coming to our community. I mean, the historical context is that we, a lot of us, never had any generational wealth being transferred to us, and so that created a cycle that went on and on. In some cases, we don't even have allowance. I never get no allowance when I was growing up. If I do work in the house, that's work I have to do. I'm not going to get paid to do it. So we never had allowance. We never had
Were
any
you not
training.
fed? Were you not clothed? You had
Ah,
food, you had shelter. What the heck?
I guess that's the allowance, right? And
That's
that's the
the
allowance. This
allowance.
is the allowance that we get access to. We're not going to get any extra cash for doing those things. And I even look back at, for example, myself, when my grandmother passed, I don't even know what her banking information is. I don't even know if there was money in it. And all
Mhm.
we had was that house that we grew up in that didn't have much of a value because of where it was situated. And so there was nothing that was passed on to us. And this is probably true for a lot of people in our
Mhm.
community. Nothing was passed on, so we don't know. And when we, then the other piece to it is like, while we are here, we are faced with the black tax,
Mhm.
which is, when you have one person from the family that starts to do good,
Mhm.
everyone from the family starts to look to that person to pull everybody up, right? So, that is taken away from that person's ability. I see you laughing there. It's true, right? These are things that we don't think about, and a lot of it is the effects of slavery, but we don't think about these things. You know what I mean? But they have
Yeah.
lasting effects. Yeah,
Because I can attest to that, and like I said, it's like sometimes I get calls, children in school in Ghana, school fees to be paid. I have my children here, I have my mortgage, I have stuff I need to save, I need to invest, I need to plan for my retirement. I have all these things kind of going on with me. So sometimes I feel choked that
yeah,
my own I don't have a real good handle on my own to carry everybody else's burden. So that's
yeah.
why I was laughing, because you hit the nail right on the head. You were speaking a language I do understand. Yeah. So the
it,
black tax is real.
it is real, and it affected me for a while because when I first moved here, it's like I don't know what the perception is in Ghana, but it's like once you reach Canada, or them say foreign, once you reach foreign, people think you make money, so they
Same,
automatically need to start send money back home.
same.
And so you find yourself sometimes, even when you're in debt, you're like, you have to send money home. And then if you don't send it, people are going to start perceive you a certain way. They're going to start judge you and criticize you. So that is another challenge. Go on, I'm listening. I see you. You have some gems to share.
So let me give you a story. I did partner. I'm collecting my pot, and I
Hmm.
had plans. Okay, I need to do some stuff in Ghana, and boom, what happens? Credit card bill.
The good old credit card bill, eh?
So I'm looking at the money, credit card bill plus interest versus Ghana.
Hmm.
It went to credit card.
Oh, I thought you were going to say, oh, it went to Ghana.
No, I don't like paying interest, so
Yeah.
it's no, it went to credit card. Yeah, but
Very good.
sometimes the intention and everything is just it's yeah, it's prioritization for me. What is
Yeah.
priority for me? Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. Whoa, 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 whoa. So, what were we talking about?
Yeah.
Generational
Yeah.
wealth. We've talked about
Generational
black
wealth, yeah.
tax. Yes. Now, I'm not. I'm not sure what. How do we call it? So let's talk about. how all these things most often affect our interpersonal relationships, either our relationships with our siblings, our relationships with our spouses, especially not coming from proper money management backgrounds,
Mhm.
and also our mental health as a collective. Because you know that if you broke, you're thinking. If you're thinking too much, you get in depression. Yeah, okay. I rest my case.
Yeah. Well, actually, the government of Canada recognize financial stress as one of the main, causes of stress in Canada, and it's probably true in a lot of other countries. But when you actually look at big financial systems like Canada, where everything is tied to finances through a credit system, it creates more stress. And so when people, in a lot of our relationships, it is the lack of money that creates a whole heap of tension. Because if you actually look at it, let's go back to why people work. People have to pay the bills. Where we have a whole heap of bills. You have car payment, you have rent, you have mortgage, you have to send money back home, you have grocery, all sort of bills, right? And you have that one income that is barely making ends meet.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? Most people are in that job that they hate. They're not happy. They're stressed. They can't bother to go in. They're not doing what they love. They burn out.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of that. And then in your relationship now, something might be happening. And this is proven that in most relationship, financial stress is the leading cause of breakup in marriages.
Mm-hmm.
That things don't go well. Either one partner spend off all the money, go to Dubai or Bora Bora, or go buy an expensive Benz or whatever the case is, and the family's in turmoil. And I say these things, because these are the realities of a lot of people, and so it is the lack of management around money. Because when most of us get a job, we don't think about money as how we should think about it. People start thinking about money when it's getting close to retirement.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe in their 40s, they're like, yeah, I need to start thinking about retirement because I want to retire early at 55 or whatever the case is. That's when we start thinking about money. But we should start talking about money even before we get a job. And if you didn't talk about it before, then you should get it the moment to start talking about one.
I
So
wanted to retire at 45, but it never happened.
it never happened. Well, it can still happen. And it will happen. You're gonna retire early still, and be on a big yacht somewhere, and maybe we'll do a podcast from there talking about real estate.
Okay, I will take you on your word.
I'm down for it. I've actually, I would love to do a podcast on a yacht. To be honest. Okay,
Okay, beautiful. It will happen
but
one way
yeah,
or the other.
one way or the other, we're gonna make it happen. So yeah,
Yes.
like you find that your day-to-day relationship, because you're so stressed, you don't even have time for your friends, and you find out you're irritated a lot, right? Just because of how the life that around us that we've created. And I'm clearly not at the point where I want to be, but what I do know, I love. There's nothing about it that stresses me. The only time I get stressed is when I see that I'm not able to deliver the quality experience that I want for people to be able to help them. That's the only time I get stressed. But the amount of work does not stress me at all because I'm doing it from a place of passion. And so if more people had that control over their money, that they can know where it's coming from, where it's going, they can make more whenever they want. I'll tell you, like, we'll see a massive reduction in the amount of stress that
Yeah.
people experience.
Beautiful. Great, 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 great. So, whilst talking about all these, money management, budgeting, finance, the black tax, which many of us carry, and hopefully we don't pass it on to our children. I want to break that cycle so my children don't have to, how do we call it, carry it. Like I said, when my dad, like I was fortunate enough to be brought here by my dad. So
Hmm.
I said, at least he did that. The rest is on me.
Mm-hmm.
to see how my future, I decide to live my future. And being 1 foot here and 1 foot in Ghana, I'm one of that generation that doesn't know whether they're retiring here or they're retiring Ghana. They're still, you know, all over the place. So
Right.
that is also a waste of money in certain places, because I have seen the older generation do that, and they don't end up going, they stay here, and the monies that they use to build their homes and whatnots in Ghana or in Nigeria or wherever, which part of Africa, is gone. Meanwhile, if we had just looked forward here and built here, we would
Mm-hmm.
have gone ahead. But
Yeah.
anyways, hindsight. Net worth, the concept of net worth, what does it mean? And is it important for us to know what we're worth?
It is everything. It is everything.
Okay, so break it down and then take us there.
Let me break it down for you. So,
Break
let
it down,
me
break it
break it
down,
down.
break it down. Yes.
A net worth is the difference between your asset and your liability. So let me talk about what is an asset and what is a liability, because a lot of people, believe it or not, consider the home that they live in an
Mhm.
asset. The mortgage that they carry an asset. It is a liability.
Liability.
Now,
Yeah.
I use three conditions to define an asset. It is something that you own, right? Number one, you own it. It is
Outright.
something, right? One, you own it. Two, it has economic value, right? And three, you can generate income. So economic value meaning that you can sell it at a profit, right?
Mhm.
And generating income means that some type of money is coming in from it. It's
Mhm.
producing income. So
Mhm.
those three conditions have to be present. So when you actually look at your property, do you own it? No, the bank still own it. So it is not an asset in my world, right? And so liability is what you owe. So any debt that you owe to anyone, that is
Mhm.
your liability. So to look at your net worth, you have to take your asset, what the value of those assets are,
Mhm.
minus your liability, and that
Mhm.
will give you your net worth. And so, what are some types of assets? Well, you can technically classify the equity
Mhm.
in your asset, sorry, in your residential property. You
Mortgage.
can
Yeah.
put that into your asset calculation, but I mean, it doesn't bring in any new type of income. So
Mhm.
that's the only criteria that would have been met in my world. But what I would look at is like any investment property that I have that meets those conditions. You look at
Mhm.
the asset appreciation, the equity appreciation in those property. And equity, for those who don't know, it is the difference between what you bought the property for and what it is now worth. So if you
Mhm.
bought it for 500 and it's worth 800, that 300,000 is equity. That's
Mhm.
something you can get. It can generate value because you can use it to buy more property,
Mhm.
right? So you look at that, you look at the value of your stocks. I mean, you can technically add cash into it, right? So if you have cash in the bank, that would form part of your asset.
Yeah.
You can add a car if the car is fully paid off, right?
Mhm.
Because you can get back some sort of income to it. Now, that number, the difference is important, and that's what you want to focus on. That's what you want to be growing every year, right? Because that will determine how valuable you are, how
Mhm.
much you can get from the bank if you wanted to get a loan, for example. The bank is
Mhm.
going to have all the asset, all the liability, and the income,
Mhm.
right? And that will determine, I mean, if you want to decide if you're in a middle class or upper middle class or whatever the case is,
Mhm.
that will be a good base. But
Mhm.
it's also important when you're talking about generational wealth because you don't want to be leaving liability
Mhm.
for your family, right? And a lot of people, we have way more liability than asset, and we're like,
Mhm.
oh yeah, like I have these things, but we don't even realize that the liability outweigh the asset. And so,
Mhm.
in some cases, what happens is that when we have traumatic situation like a divorce or a debt, then you're left with a ton of liability, a ton of debt, and so
Mhm.
you have a financial crisis looming. So you always want to be paying attention to your net worth. Very, very important number.
Guys, this is the Nanaya Yabua podcast. Woof! We've been talking about money. I'm sorry, youth. Yes, we're talking about money for Black youth, but we ended up, talking about money for adults as well. But it's equally important, like I said earlier. You need to understand these concepts, and when you say somebody is wealthy, or somebody says my net worth is X, Y, and Z, then you really know what they're talking about. And I remember when I discovered the concept of net worth, and I calculated mine, it was minus something and something and something and something. It's like,
Yeah. It's not that complicated. And if you're looking at a 15-year-old or a 14-year-old or a 13, whatever the case is, at 15, you probably don't have any liability unless you borrow some money from mom or dad,
mhm,
right? And then your asset most likely will be cash. Or
yeah,
if you have some type of rare comic book
mhm,
that happen to be in your possession, then you can look at how much you can sell it for. So you can like Google, okay, I have this comic book, how much can I sell it for? That would be the market value. And so that is an asset that is a part of, your net worth. If you don't have no asset, sorry, no liability, then that's great, even better at your age. But I will tell you, like one of the things that I want to say around liability with net worth, and it doesn't matter the age, in our community, we tend to run away from debt and we see debt as bad.
mhm,
The only type of debt that we consume is bad debt. And so we think all debt is bad. What do I mean by bad debt? Bad debt is debt that does not generate any value. So when you take your credit card and you go buy a lot of brand name things, that
mhm,
is bad debt. But if you were to get a loan from the bank and you invest it and you make more money, that is good debt, right? So teenagers, start that formula, write it down somewhere. How much I owe in terms of debt, how much I own, the
mhm,
ownership piece, that is my asset. And anything that you have that you can resell, value it. Start that process of valuing them because it will evolve as you get older.
mhm, mhm, mhm. Wow, this is great. This is great. This is, oh my goodness. This is necessary conversations. Uh, this is necessary conversations that we need to continually be having within our community for our children, and reminders for us as well, because maybe I know a few people know, but not many in the community are really aware of it. So it is very important. Oh, goodness gracious. So, Flip Academy. Where can we find Flip Academy if one is looking for more information on Andre Smith Flip Academy, want to learn more, want to connect with you, for one-on-one, say, personal, sessions, consultations, etc. Where do we go?
Yeah, so Flip Academy, right now we have a free pilot going on our website. So you can log in if you have kids and you can take our courses, interact with the gamification on the platform for free. And that is going to be ongoing. So that's at flipacademy.ca.
Mhm.
I just started my podcast actually, so I have 2 episodes out. It is called the Flip Boss Show. Yeah, the Flip Boss Show. Where I'm going to be sharing my story in more detail about, rising from the streets of Spanish Town to becoming a real estate investor and a tech entrepreneur. And that is called the Flip Boss Show on Spotify. I'm on LinkedIn as Andre Smith. I'm on Instagram, my personal Instagram, the Flip Boss the Flip Boss underscore T dot. And then we're on all the social media platform, Flip Academy underscore kids for Flip Academy.
Yeah.
So yeah, as you can see, I have a lot of socials going on there. But I'm sure once you search the Flip Boss, you will see something come up about the work that I do.
I'm not even sure what I was searching. I was searching for something financial in Toronto, and then it popped up. So that's,
Really?
yes.
Ah, that's good to know. That's how come it is. No wonder why I'm getting all these emails and calls and requests from organizations because I
Yeah.
guess the information is out there showing me as the financial literacy person.
Yes, the information, because much of the information I personally I consume is coming from the United States, not Canadian content. So
Right.
I wanted to see what we did have here, which
Gotcha.
individuals are speaking the language I want to hear in Canada, so that if another Canadian is listening, the US have their systems, how it works. Canadians, we have our system, how it works here. So for instance, we're talking about real estate. How do I get into real estate here in Canada? What are some of the challenges I'm going to have with this? You see, for instance, BNS, Bank of Nova Scotia, or Scotia Bank, or RBC, or whatnot. So sort of walking through that, and the language, and the community, the society, social feeling we have here in Canada. So that was kind of like the search for me for a Canadian based content. And then
Yeah.
your LinkedIn thing popped up, so I started digging through. It's like, oh, I got to have a conversation with the Flip boss. And thank you for saying yes. Thank you for saying yes.
No
And
problem.
thank you for having patience for me, because we also had to change the dates of this
Sure, that's no
conversation.
problem.
Yes. I appreciate you. I appreciate you.
No problem.
Andre Smith. So, guys, if you're looking for Andre Smith, you can find him on Flip Academy, or you can also listen to his podcast, Flip Boss Show. I will be tuning in, I will be listening, and I'll be sharing. That is so wonderful. I'm very happy you are doing this podcast, the Flip Boss, how do we call it, show, the
Yeah.
podcast, because we need that content. It is very much needed, and it's coming at the right time, when it's like there is an awakening. So please join me, and let's continue doing this job. I need it, you need it, our people need it. This is our story to tell.
Thanks for having me. Really enjoyed the discussion.
You are most welcome.